Hi everyone, I hope everyone is well. For my presentation today, I am going to be talking about the understanding and highlighting the severity of worry in late life individuals, primarily talking about generalized anxiety disorder in late life adults. Okay, so just for a little overview of what we're going to be discussing today. So first we are going to look at some definitions, some symptoms, some criteria, prevalence, and treatments for generalized anxiety disorder. Then we are going to be discussing limbic prefrontal connectivity. So, going to be looking at some brain structures, functions, and some definitions there as well. And lastly, we are going to talk about our supporting article that measures kind of both of these constructs. Okay, so first we're going to discuss generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD, GAD. We can kind of see them both referred to as that sometimes. So for this presentation, I'll just be using the term GAD. So this is the most common anxiety disorder that we would see in older adults. Just a breakdown of kind of what this disorder entails. I'm sure you guys all know or have experienced some anxiety before, but with this specific disorder, we see excessive and persistent feelings of worry and anxiety. And those feelings are characterized as excessive worrying for more days than not for a period of 6 months. So that is that criteria that we need to be formally diagnosed with this. And then over those months, we can also see a variety of symptoms, both emotional and physical. Some of the most common physical symptoms would be fatigue, headaches, stomach aches, sweating, and irritability. And these are just the most common ones, but different individuals experience a variety of different symptoms. And then most individuals treat GAD with medication or psychotherapy. Some people use one or the other, some people use both, or some people don't use either at all. That just really is up to the individual and is determined by their specific experience or criteria within this disorder. Okay, so now we are going to talk about the idea of emotional dysregulation in GAD. So within this, we see two main deficits that people usually experience. So the first one would be a deficit in emotional reactivity, so strong emotional responses to threats. And the second one would be emotional regulation, so managing and response to emotions. And again, most people experience a deficit in these when diagnosed with GAD. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some brain processes that are most relevant with GAD. Especially in the study, they really dissect these ideas. So this overarching idea of limbic prefrontal connectivity. So we can kind of see that broken down into two different sections. So the first one would be understanding the limbic system. So that is going to be the response for emotion and motivation in the brain. And we'll see the amygdala is located within the limbic system, and that is going to be responsible for feelings of fear, anger, and a flight or fight response. And then with that, we also need to understand the prefrontal cortex. So that is going to be the system responsible for logical analysis, self-control, and planning. And then this also acts as a regulatory system for the limbic system and especially the amygdala. Okay, so now that we have some of the basic definitions, processes, structures of the brain kind of defined, now we can look at our current study, which is when worry may be good for you, worry severity, and limbic prefrontal functional connectivity in late life generalized anxiety disorder. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the main purpose of the study, their main ideas, their main drive for the study, and then, of course, their hypotheses. So, kind of their main drive for making the study was that there have been little research on the neural markers of GAD. And then their main idea was that worry, severity, and limbic prefrontal connectivity during emotional reactivity in late life GAD. So their main two hypotheses, normal worry in non-anxious individuals may enhance the connectivity between the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex, in turn promoting healthy emotional reactivity and regulation. However, severe worry seen in late life generalized anxiety disorder could disrupt this process, in turn impairing that effective emotional regulation. Okay, so their methodology for the study, they started with recruiting 16 anxious and 20 non-anxious individuals. The criteria for the 16 anxious individuals was that they had to have some anxiety disorder or GAD. And then the criteria for the non-anxious individuals was that they just had to have no history of any psychiatric disorders. And then I think it's important to note that 3 of the 16 anxious individuals had other anxiety disorders that consisted of post-traumatic stress disorder, panic disorder, and social phobia disorder. Okay, so now we're going to talk about some of the clinical measures that they had their participants fill out. So they administered 6 different questionnaires that assessed a plethora of different symptoms and different domains. So the first one that they had them fill out was to measure the severity of their worry. For this, they used the Penn State Worry Questionnaire. The second one was to assess symptoms of anxiety, and they used the Hamilton Anxiety Rating Scale. The third measure was to assess symptoms of depression. For that, they used the Hamilton Depression Rating Scale. They also wanted some measure of cognitive function, and for that, they used the Mini Mental State Examination. They also wanted to assess levels of neuroticism. So for that, researchers used the 5-factor inventory. And then lastly, they wanted to measure any medical comorbidities. So for that, they used the Cumulative Illness Rating Scale for Geriatrics. Okay, after they administered the 6 set of questionnaires, they administered some additional measures. So they also had participants participate in the Faces and Shapes Emotional Reactivity Task, which is a paradigm to probe emotional faces processing and engage that limbic and prefrontal region of the brain. And then with this, they also administered whole brain fMRIs to collect data, as well as the generalized psychophysiological interaction analysis to measure the functional connectivity between those limbic and prefrontal regions. Okay, and after collection of all of this data, their final results came of that in people with GAD. There was more worry linked to weaker connections between the brain areas involved in emotion and regulation, while in healthy people, more worry was linked to stronger connections. So overall, the connection between these brain areas followed a reverse U-shaped pattern, which show both very low and very high levels of worry that were associated with those weaker connections. Overall, these results stay true even after accounting for other factors like personality traits, general anxiety, and cognitive ability. And that's a really important piece of it. So I'm happy that researchers kind of took all of those into account and did a measure for each of those as well. Okay, and then for the discussion, they discussed some limitations from the study. So they noted that there might be a slightly skewed result from the Penn State Worry Questionnaire. They also noted a small amount of non-anxious people with high worry, and then overall they just kind of wanted to note the limitations stemming from a overall smaller sample size. And then they also noted that low depression comorbidity in the sample of late life GAD may not translate or generalize to GAD in younger populations. Okay, and that's going to be it for today. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoy your upcoming Thanksgiving and Christmas breaks. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, please feel free to email me or send me a Teams. All right, thank you.